Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum, Future of Finance. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we'll turn the floor over to our esteemed keynote speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, James Clent, Chief Information Officer and Chief Information Security Officer, Loyalty Ventures. We are excited to have James for his keynote presentation titled The 6 Pillars of IT Spending Transformation. Welcome, James. Over to you.
Thanks, Nick. And it's good to be here. Thank you for having me. All of you, I'm going to run through the 6 pillars. We have half an hour, so doing 6 pillars is going to take some speed on my side. Argyle will be presenting the information tomorrow on their websites, which will include this slide presentation, as well as a link to a LinkedIn article that I wrote on the topic, so that you can read into more detail what we're discussing today. A little bit about me. I hope, there we go. I'm originally from Europe, hence the Amsterdam background that you're seeing on the screen. That's where I was born and raised, played professional basketball in Europe, and moved with IBM to the United States to work here, and then moved into all other sorts of companies. I went into a utility software company, I've been in healthcare, been in manufacturing, I've been all over the place. So very much a truly worldly experience. And on top of that, which is the picture, I'm also a musician at the moment. I have 3 albums out. I got a record deal at the tender age of 57. Not very relevant here, but for me, it was very fulfilling. All right, into the topic immediately. When you look at IT spending, and these numbers are a little bit older from 2019, you see that in the different silos, verticals, IT spends as a percentage of revenue can be significantly different. You know, high tech has a high number, but financial services, fintech has high numbers. So I tried to lay out to see, you know, what is that spend and what is that IT spend, and where does it sit at the low end, and where does it sit at the high end, and how do you deal with that? Also, traditional IT, which is the middle of the section, keeping the lights on, so keeping the current systems running, is typically 80% of the IT spend. We do like 15% of the spend is on incremental improvements, and only 5% is spent on real innovation and transformation of the company and the business. I was able to transfer that into the right column, where I spent 40% on keeping the lights on and 50% on innovation and working on top line improvements. And then within that cost specification, you need to realize that, you know, more than 50% of IT spend is labor. Looking at trends, spending trends, you see that infrastructure prices keep going down, cost goes going down. The back office systems, they grow incrementally, but not much. Cybersecurity is a really large consumer of spending growth in the IT environment, because there's new threats every day, and especially going on with the war in Ukraine going on, we see more and more nation states being part of attacks that happen over the internet. We see DevOps going back in favor of analytics, AI, machine learning. And then there's a lot of spending growth on digital marketing. The 6 pillars, they are listed here, and I will go through each of them in detail on the next pages. But quickly, you know, it's about shifting your focus. It's looking at microservices, using as much data and insight as you can get, not just for outside, but also inside. Look at your development operations and your IT operations. Organizing for success, very important, because most of the projects, most of the IT spend that goes to waste is because we didn't organize for success. And then budget transparency. That sounds like a very light topic, but it's one of the most important ones on the entire list. So going into the first shift of focus. I will come back to the CapEx, and I see a question coming in. What are the major CapEx and OpEx expenditures that need to be taken into consideration? We'll get into that. They all need to be taken into consideration. So we need to move from non-differentiating to differentiating spend. You know, how does what we're spending contribute to our overall success? It's not just keeping the lights on. What are we doing, and how is it effective from our top and our bottom line? And it could be direct or indirect. You know, just having a better communication cycle for your sales folks with customers might create customer satisfaction, which will allow customers, or will drive customers to do more business with you because it's easy to do business. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be a direct spend related. It can be an indirect spend that delivers results. Cost optimization has been the arena in which IT cost has been mostly like, okay, we can do more things effectively. You know, automation started out in the 60s and 70s of the last century by replacing manual labor by computed labor. The stretch is out. When is the last time that a bottom line optimization really delivered savings? You know, oh, it's going to save me 4 headcounts. And then you come to the end of the project and there is no headcount reduction. Oh yeah, but it's an hour here and an hour there and they can do more. So we spend money, we did an optimization, but we don't save. Top line development typically helps much more. I mean, I was in a company where my CEO told me, hey, you know, if I can take 3% out of my labor cost, it doesn't outweigh a 2% overall revenue increase, because the overall revenue increase is handled with variable cost only, right? So the margins don't have to deal with the G&A and are therefore stable and much better. And it outweighs that cost optimizations always and every time. Then risk management. Nobody wants to be the next headline in the Wall Street Journal, but don't get spooked into buying a Lamborghini that sits in the garage, you know, because a lot of these risk managers and risk vendors, they tell you that the end of the world is coming soon. But you need to really look at that in a perspective of how does that all relate to me? So don't take that risk, manage that risk, but don't get scared into, you know, spending so much on cybersecurity that nothing else gets done. And then last but not least, service disruption. Service disruptions can be freaking expensive. You know, they are customer and sales nightmares. Customers, because they're on your website or in your mobile app and they don't get service, or your sales department on the phone. I can't get the data out of the computer right now. You know, so the cost of lost sales, but also overtime, frustration, and turnover in the departments. You know, one of the things we saw at one of my companies was we had a month-end closing cycle of 15 days. Why? Well, if everybody was running their closing reports and their AR reconciliation, account reconciliation, the system would crash and we would have to start it up again. And so folks would work 2 weekends in a row, plus the week in between on month-end close, just because of those service interruptions. We had enormous turnover numbers. If you can reduce that, those turnover numbers go down, satisfaction goes up, but you have your numbers sooner, your information is there and ready at hand, and total cost of month-end close is not interfering with the rest of your business. Microservices. The last time, you know, you asked IT for something, the answer is typically, oh, that's going to take at least 3 to 6 months to develop. We don't have that time. The opportunity in the market is right now. The opportunity for the business is right now. I want to be able to do something right now. And with microservices, which are focused opportunities, focused, independent processes that can be executed, you can do these things. A simple example that probably every one of you knows is a microservice that was introduced by the ERP systems, where an approval of an invoice or a purchase order would require you as the CFO to log into the system, find your Oracle password or your SAP password, go into the system, find the PO and approve it, which you don't really have time for to do, nor do you have a need to do it, right? So what they built was an email that comes to you that has a simple opportunity. I approve, I disapprove, and a comment box. You click on that box in the email, it goes back. That's a typical microservice because it gets handled and it gets processed in the system and you don't have to do it. So it optimizes your process, your satisfaction, and the compliance is there. The process gets done the way it needs to be done without all the cumbersomeness that comes with logging into a system where you're normally not working. The same thing with market opportunities. If there is a trend or something goes viral or a development in the market, you want to be able to jump on it and do something with it. And especially with mobile, the speed of things changing in the market is getting higher and higher and quicker and quicker. And we need to be able to respond to that. But we need to do it with feedback loops so that we know if it's effective or not. The same with operational opportunities. We should be able to quickly deliver a report or a function to help an operational goal that we have as a company. That should be something that could be done today and not tomorrow. The biggest problem is whenever you ask somebody to develop something, there's a group of people, business users, IT folks, that go sit in a room and they design the heck out of something that needs to be perfect. We don't need perfection. It needs to work, it needs to be effective, it needs to be now, and it needs to be reliable. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you know the book by Meg Whitman that started eBay and PayPal, where they just, they developed up to 80% and then brought it live, checked in with the customers, what did they like, what did they not like, because you cannot think perfection that far ahead. That's why we invented our Agile, but even Agile doesn't deliver on all the things that you need to deliver. And then parallel deliverable. There is never only one thing that needs to be delivered for the organization. There is always a myriad of things. Question coming in, where do you see the most focus when it comes to spending for digital transformation? See, for me, digital transformation doesn't exist. It's business transformation with a focus on digital media. And where do I see the most focus? I see most companies replicating their websites on a mobile phone. That's wrong. The spending should be on engaging with your customer, whatever your customer is, whoever your customer is, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. It's getting information at their fingertips, engage with them. And for that, you will need AI, you need ML. So those focus areas to be able to have relevant information shared with your customers are valuable and are the most important, because engagement is the magic word for the next decade. And again, I will give you examples of that in the next section. Here we are, data and insight. So first and foremost, what gets measured gets done. We all know that. But you also need to look at how effective is our new incentive program or our marketing campaign, right? How effective are we in reaching our customer and getting our message across? Do we really see, if we send out these coupons, do we see an uptake in sales or not? Because you want to know what works and what doesn't work. Continuously reinvent yourself, meaning we've always done it this way, so this is the best way of doing it. No, it's not. I come from a situation where in our sales process, the answer was always open. Yeah, that's great, all these beautiful tools, but Our sales process is 100% relationship based. Okay, but what if that relationship could be better? What if you, right when you get to the door of the customer, have all the latest issues that the customer has linked with other departments at your fingertips and you have answers? You have all the information about current order flow with the customer. You have historic views of that customer. You have it all at your fingertips, either on your tablet, your laptop, or on your phone. You step in, you're prepared for every question that comes. The customer is happier. Yes, we make the relationship better. It doesn't have to be digital in the form of they do everything now on their phone and we don't need salespeople anymore. No, there is a lot of businesses that are still reliant on a relationship with that customer. And actually, I would say more and more. You know, in my current model, where I've advised some large companies in the United States that were doing mobile development, we talked about how do you make that mobile development relevant? So I want to see trends. You know, for me, I'm relevant to my customer if I can say, hey, John, we see that your daughter has a birthday in 3 weeks, and we know that she's, you know, turning 14. Here are some suggestions of things that are currently trending for 14-year-old girls. Saves me a lot of searching. It saves me a lot of activities that I would need to do otherwise, to find time to do them. I don't know what 14-year-old girls are up to. You know, just from looking at her friends and her, I can have an idea, but these trends could all be presented to me. Now I'm engaged. But I shouldn't be sending that same message for the next 3 months. You know, I bought a car in September. I still get car adverts on my browser or on my Instagram. Are customers happy with all the automation and loss of personal touch? No, they are not. They are absolutely not. You know, and that's the thing. They need to feel that you know them, that you are working with them, and that you are taking an interest in who they are and what they do. So for that, you need analytics. Analytics, and this is a subjective term, but this is the way I define it. Analytics is looking at historical data, looking at trends, and then projecting our current mix of process and product to the future and determine what would be able to happen, what could happen, and how to respond. Whereas business intelligence is more about understanding the market of tomorrow and adopting your product mix and your organization to that. You know, the best example for that for me is the Apple App Store. We all know that Apple was a failing business when they were just focused on the Macintosh. And it wasn't the iPhone that made them one of the most powerful businesses in the world. It was the fact that you could run apps on the iPhone and that those apps could be sold in their app store. Apple is a media company. They're no longer a technology hardware company. They use their technology hardware to capture that market and to maintain that market. And as you've seen, since they became that media company and offered music streaming, they offered apps, they offered all these other things that businesses started using, that they became one of the best run companies in the world. The same is true with Amazon AWS. When Amazon came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they had this e-commerce website, they realized nobody else had it. And they started selling that service. You know, one of the first customers to step in there was Target. The Target website was an Amazon run website. And that's how they created, slowly but surely, this AWS web services business that is now, you know, running 50% of all IT load everywhere in the world. Maybe not 50, well, it's a lot. You know, so business intelligence is looking at the market. What will the market be tomorrow, and how do I organize for that? How do I create new products for that? For me, that is knowing your business as well as knowing your market. Then we're talking about DevOps, right? The biggest problem you have in DevOps is what I call resource lock, meaning I have a whole floor full of C# programmers. And, you know, James, I would really like to do some AI analytics and ML. And to do that, guess what? I need Python programmers. I don't need C# programmers. Okay, so now I need to retrain my entire IT department. That takes forever. You know, that takes 3-6 months to do it. Or I'm having to hire new programmers. What are the old programmers doing? You know, so for me, it's best to partner. Find the specialist in that field, and not one, have many. And say, okay, I have 2 AI programming companies that I partner with, because what can I do? I don't have to resource lock, meaning if there's no project, hey, I don't have a bunch of programmers sitting on the bench that need to be paid, but are not doing anything. But also, if I have to shut down a project because it's not delivering on its promise, I can do that tomorrow without having to do big layoffs. So partner, find the specialists, because there is so many areas: AI, business intelligence, machine learning. There's all these opportunities. Partner, partner, partner. The same thing is, keep your domain knowledge in-house. There's nobody that knows your business like you. Simple. So don't go, anybody outside can tell you what your business is, how it's working, what your culture is, how your organization works, processes are. Keep that in-house. But the execution of that, you don't need that in-house. You have an ability to really start up a project fast, but also shut it down fast, as I said earlier. And then if there is a solution that is non-differentiating, if we're talking about non-differentiating development, purchase it rather than develop it, because you can start using it much quicker than when you start developing. Now, if it is a differentiating technology, you may want to look and see, how can I close my contract with a partner for the development of that? Yeah, so not the creation, but the coding of that solution. That can be outsourced, but make sure you have NDAs and contracts clauses in place. And your domain knowledge, your people in-house design it. They bring it to your people in the organization, but the execution of the programming and the testing and the data can all be done outside. Organize for success. This one is controversial to many of you. Help desk, keep it inside. The help desk is people business. My users need to know that there is somebody that understands, A, what they're doing, what the work is that they're doing, what the problem is they're really having, which is typically not, I have a printer driver issue, but hey, the software is not doing what I need it to do. And so they need to feel that they are heard and understood, and that there is follow through, right? And the help desk does that. It is very important. Keep your cyber control, the control in-house, just like the domain knowledge. Because vendors, they will sell you doomsday every day to increase their own revenue. So you have the people that make the decisions what we do or do not need, which things we need to follow up on and which not to follow up on. Because a vendor will sell you the moon and you don't know what is true and what is not true. Managed services and software as a service, those are very popular. There is a question about the value of IT spend. I'll come back to that in a minute. It's great, you know, every time I get a question, the next slide has the answer. So, managed services is great, meaning you have another company's managing some of your processes or some of your systems. Software as a service, like a lot of public cloud ERP systems, Oracle Clouds, SAP public cloud are currently available as a service, but also things like Office 365. Make sure that you have created and measured SLAs, service level agreements, that are in the contract and that have penalty clauses. Now, your Oracle salesperson and your SAP salesperson and your Microsoft salesperson will tell you, No, our legal department will never accept any changes to the contract. It's not true. I've made them, I've done them, and they will be accepted. I see that I'm taking up a lot of time, so I'm just going to speed up a little bit. Keep your change management in-house, because the change is implementing the new systems in your organization. Do that with people that understand your organization. And then make sure that your governance and PMO, which are compliance-based and control-based, are also in-house. Many vendors do project management by just moving the timelines. Yeah, you know what, we're late on this, so now it's a month later. That's not project management. Project management is doing everything it takes to get back to success on the commitment date that you have. And then last, the sixth pillar, which is budget transparency. Relate every dollar back to function. A really nice way of doing that is by number of support tickets that you get. Yeah, so if the accounting department has 30% of the support tickets, then at least 30% of my support department and the systems that they are want support on could be allocated to them. All projects, make them directly related to business initiatives and make the project cost part of the approval cycle, so that when the ROI is calculated and the costs are calculated, that the CapEx that goes with it is part of that project and the controls on that. Yeah, because oftentimes it is, yeah, well, we did everything, but IT is late, or the system is there, my people are not ready. And so it needs to be one. It is one initiative. It's not an IT or a business initiative. It is all of us working together. Being able to prove the total cost of ownership. What is the cost of ownership, which includes the operating effect in the department using the system, is part of the cost of ownership. We always forget heating, cooling, the space on the floor, the electricity use, etc. They're all part of the cost of ownership. The clarity of spending, which I've been able to create for both the EC and the board, both on OPEX and CapEx, are so much easier if you can relate them back directly to A, where are my dollars going, and B, what are we getting for these dollars? You can quantify that. I would say the most successful IT executives are people that have an accounting background, that understand debit, credit, can read a balance sheet, understand how to present those numbers to the executive committee and the board. And it will give you a faster budget and CapEx approval process, because everybody that is depending on you is part of that cost allocation. There's a question here that says, what data would you look for to find the ROI of the IT expenditures? I don't think that's the correct question. The ROI includes all expenditure. How many people are you going to add? How much extra equipment do you need? Sure. How much extra people, how many extra people do you need? If you have a data center, what's that going to cost? If you need to expand your contract with AWS, how's that going to work? How do you satisfy your compliance? How do you make systems integrate with other systems? So the ROI can have many facets. What I would do is always look again, what's the function? What is the business initiative? And how are the dollars that I'm spending related to that? I hope this was useful. There's more detail, as I said, in the article on LinkedIn. I'm running towards the end. Nick, back to you. Maybe there's time for more questions, but.
Great. Yeah, you can take maybe one more quick question, James.
Let me see. How do you communicate the value of IT spend to stakeholders and address any pushback? You just, as you can relate it to function, you relate it to what they can and cannot do. And then the other thing to do is use your governance compliance processes as well as your cybersecurity, because people always forget that, oh, I just want this little change. You have to change this word on that screen, or this input field needs to become that input field. That shouldn't cost 2 weeks of work, right? What they forget is that if I do all of that quick and dirty, like skunk work, then tomorrow's work I cannot do because it's not documented. It's not properly tested. What is the effect of changing this field on all subsequent processes? You have to be able to talk the language of the business. The second thing is very important is, as a CIO, as a CFO, you've done this all the time. Talk to your peers. Find out what they need to be successful and start finding creative ways to deliver that. With that, you create credibility, understand their business, speak their language. Very important. If you're going to talk to a bunch of salespeople, talk sales data, talk dollars, talk commission, talk information they need, talk order sizes. You need to know their business when you talk. It's the only way, because if you start talking geek talk as an IT person, and you've guys seen this all the time, CIO comes into the executive committee or into the boardroom, start talking about Exchange backup facilities and the difficulty. Everybody takes their phone out and start reading email because they've lost interest. They can't follow it. They don't want to know about it. So educate your IT folks. Help them understand the business. Help them understand basic accounting. Send it to school. Do it. You know, I have 5 degrees. I was an accountant first, worked at IBM as an accountant. Then I started doing international distribution. Then I started doing IT projects all over the world. So I've been there. You have to have that knowledge. And if they don't have that knowledge, make them get it or get someone that does. Because that knowledge is vitally important for you being successful talking to your IT department. They need to know your language, not the other way around.
Great. Thank you, James, for such an insightful presentation. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this fantastic keynote. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Thanks so much, everyone.